call to order the Tuesday, May 18th special edition Norton Select Board. Let the record show that 4 members are present: myself, Meg Arts, Renee Deli, Mike Toole. Christine DeVoe is not on, but we are joined by Town Manager Michael Units. Welcome everybody, and welcome everybody who's tuning in from home. We have a short agenda tonight focused on one item, and that would be the TIF agreement with Home Depot and Condyne. Had a few questions and revision requests at our last meeting. So Mike, I know you sent a red line copy back a bit earlier tonight. So if we want to go through and see where we stand.
Let me share that. So since I sent you that last email, there was another revision by Home Depot. So the first red line on here was to add here where lit and landlord.
So it was a mistake, Renee, to catch that. It should have been and landlord there. Have that first one then.
Yep.
Okay.
Mike, you might just want to make sure that that's capitalized, just so it's matching the other titles.
Will do. Yep.
So is this set up because...
I'm sorry, Mike. I'm sorry, Jeff.
Go ahead, Renee.
Can you just scroll back up? I lost the screen for a second. What do you want, page 2?
Yes.
Hold on 1 second. I got some sort of system issues. Go ahead, Jack. I'm sorry.
So am I understanding correctly that the agreement is with the tenant and landlord, just the way that property taxes are set up through the lease? So I'm assuming Condyne pays the property taxes, and then with the triple net lease, Home Depot would pay to Condyne?
That's correct.
Excellent.
All the benefits pass through to the tenant.
Okay.
1 sec, Mike, before you move on. I needed a quick update, so.
Jeff, is that a separate agreement, or is that part of the? Is that an addendum of the original lease?
It is a provision within the lease.
Provision, so it's part of the original. Okay.
Part of the original lease, yes.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I should have went through you. I apologize.
Okay. Thanks, Mike, for hanging tight.
Okay, let me go. Boy, sorry about that. Okay. Page 3, there were no changes. On page 4, you wanted to add within the town and ETA.
What item are you on, number 7? What about
Number 7.
item D above?
Let me see. So in item D, and I know Jeff can talk on this, but the Mass Office of Business Development failing was where they talk about contractors.
Mm-hmm.
That would be anyone that was working on the building. Contractors, vendors, and suppliers.
I guess my connection, because I'm reading connection, my question was more around, should it read in connection with the construction and operation of the land parcel? So you're saying that they feel that contractors with the operation covers construction?
And also Jeff had an issue with that.
I'll speak for Condyne. In our side, Renee, it's related to the operation, which is the property management afterwards.
Yeah.
So any of the landscapers, snow plowers, things like that, we're making our best efforts to hire locally or within the ETA. As it relates to construction going right now, I'd say 75% of our subcontractor base is south of Boston. But for instance, one of our largest suppliers, which is steel, is not even coming from the US.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I know this says to consider, to the extent consistent, understanding that it wouldn't be a guarantee. And Jeff, I read it the same way, that I thought it was after, right, the building was up. Like my question is, so it seems like you're doing that. My question is should it be in the contract? Just saying that in connection with the construction and operation. If you're already doing it, I mean, it's not a requirement, it's just a consideration. Like, and Mike, I guess I would see that as standard language for us. Like, I know Jeff and Condyne are doing that, but if we negotiated any other TIF agreements in it, he wasn't the developer, I would expect that to be the same for anyone else.
I think there's probably a timing issue related to it. So by all means, the people that we have contracted for the building are in that, mostly that area encompassing southeastern Mass, but you can't, if there's any sort of potential clawback or anything like that, we can't have it at that point in time.
What do you mean, Jeff? I don't understand.
What I'm saying is, for instance, this building, we're already under construction, we've started, we're proceeding, and I'd say most of all the subcontractors have been contracted for the actual construction to date. So
We did get that $166,000 check already.
you're welcome. So 75%, I would say, of the subcontractors are in the ETA, but I couldn't guarantee you whether they're all within there. And I can't, because we have steel that's outside of it.
Right, well, I mean, this isn't asking a guarantee, it's just saying to consider, right? So I understand you've already contracted with them.
Yeah.
I guess, again, timing issue, then we should have done the TIF a while ago, right, before it happened.
Correct.
So, I mean, I'm fine taking your word on that, Jeff, and would make a note, Mike, that I would expect to see a template contract and that item D be updated to read in connection with the construction and operation, so that we have that for future contracts. Because again, I mean, Condyne's been working with the town a long time, so there's certainly more understanding and familiarity. But that doesn't mean it's going to be the case with all future opportunities.
So if I'm hearing what you're,
Yep, go ahead. I was just going to say, that's it for the board's opinion.
yeah, so if I'm hearing what you're saying, Renee, it's a sort of a non-binding consideration of using local labor in both the construction and operation of the building. So it's not something that I would understand. Could be a clawback, but it just it reinforces the ties to the local community. And I agree, if that ship has sailed for this one, I'm okay with that, because I understand the complexity that's involved with building. But I would agree if we can put that into our boilerplate for the future, I think that would make sense. And again, it's not a requirement, it's a consideration.
So, Mr. Chairman,
It's my vote.
Mike, this has to be approved by the state though. So would they just, every time, are they gonna redline this out every time?
I don't think they would, if that was something that we put in the future. We'd have to see what they say.
I don't think they'd have a problem with it. It's just for everyone's, where we are today, we're in a quirky construction market. We can only commit to 7 days of the next subcontractor bid where they're coming from due to pricing, so.
You mean to tell me $8 a piece, 2x4 is a normal market?
I'm glad we have Home Depot here.
And Jeff, is that a professional term, quirky?
I would say so, yes. Not the
It's a
norm.
nicer term than I would use.
Okay, and then the next was number 7, just to add the town for consistency purposes. Okay.
And does that need to be capitalized as well, to Jeff's earlier point, just for consistency?
Yep, we'll do that. Here we just, after discussion, where it said at its annual meeting, we just took that out. And so good faith efforts to negotiate an amendment to this agreement subject to approval by the select board and with final approval of the Economic Assistance Coordinating Council at its next quarterly meeting.
So we don't have to take that to town meeting?
No,
Already did.
right.
I thought we did that with on Island, this last amendment.
That was a revision to that.
I thought it was an amendment. Right, it was amending the employee number kind of in lieu of the
Yeah,
actual increased cost.
I think you're right, Renee, right? Because we had to get the state, it needed state approval as well as town approval, right?
I swore we were at town meeting for that.
You are correct, yep. Because there was an amendment to an agreement that was approved by town meeting, so we don't necessarily have the legislative authority to do that unilaterally. So
Mike,
could we just put by approval by the select board and town meeting?
And town meeting. Yep, we'll add that in there and leave it. I'm sure they're not gonna have an issue with that. Jeff, you don't think they'll have an issue with that?
No.
I mean, that was in my original comment. You know why it wasn't?
Mike, could you make that change now by any chance?
Yep,
Just so we can, what we're looking at is what we're voting on.
And Jeff, I appreciate you working with us to make these edits. I know you guys are up against a deadline for tomorrow, so hopefully we can polish all this up.
We'll get there.
Jeff, this is how we roll. Keeping generic like that qualifies fall, spring, special, right? Keeping it generic like that, right?
yeah. All right,
Are you working off of your laptop keyboard, Mike?
I am.
Your mouse? I can tell how it's like out of control.
The next thing we were working on is 10. This was going back and forth with the Home Depot attorneys. So you had a question on this, and so this agreement shall be binding upon all parties to it and shall be binding upon and inure to the benefit of any subsequent affiliates of the tenant in the event of the assignment of the agreement to an affiliate of the tenant. And the reason for that is they may have a different entity that may own the stores at some point, depending on how they run the business. You know, that they may separate out, might be Home Depot Logistics.
Mike, I would have a major I mean, I don't know. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but this would mean that we would be transferring if they did that wording the way that I read it, and that I'm not a lawyer, as I like to say, would mean that it transfer, if you sublet the place, it would transfer to the subletter.
I disagree.
It has to be an affiliate of Home Depot. It can't just be, you can't just sublet it to Joe's Construction. I mean, it has to be an affiliate of Home Depot.
That's how I would understand that as well.
The previous language, Michael, I read the previous language like that, right? Subsequent tenants. could be anybody versus this
Right.
has to be somebody under the Home Depot corporate umbrella.
Right.
Yeah, I think this language is much better than what was there
Yeah,
before.
that's fine. All right, that's fine.
All right. And I think that was it.
This was my first run around with these TIFs on the board and so forth. So we've never made these TIFs available. So we've just summarized what the TIF was, and the town has voted on it. They never saw the paperwork, or if somebody wanted to see it, we've never made that available before they voted on it.
Yeah, there's always a draft TIF available. And then they give, which has all the major items in it. And, the original draft TIF was the one that you all presented for the joint meeting with the finance committee. I don't have and it's always on file at the town clerk's office.
That's like showing what the tax, it's really a focus on what the tax incentives are, right?
Right, and then they authorize, the vote at town meeting is authorizing the board to negotiate the final TIF.
Within those financial constraints.
Yep.
Mike, is it possible, to Michael's point, that like this particular document, even if it's in early draft form, is what's presented to the EDC initially? I see the company coming and presenting, and maybe we don't see this initially, right? They come and present like they do now, provide a description, we see the basics on the financials, and then this is shared separately to be reviewed at a future meeting, right? Just so that there's one, so that at the, ninth inning, we're not going through this and having these questions. And I think it would just help to, there's some specific knowledge base in different areas. So I think that it would help just to provide more time and review.
Okay.
I don't know what FinCom would think about actually looking at it, right? They might only be interested in those financial details, but I certainly would like to see it earlier.
Yeah, FinCom did have it, at that first Monday in April.
Like this particular draft?
Not the final draft, the rough draft before you made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's incumbent upon us to just ask to see this earlier in the process, to Renee's point, so that we're not having people scrambling to meet the May 19th deadline.
But certainly appreciate you guys, addressing this urgently, and especially my email at like 9:30 this morning that I sent very late. So I apologize. I tried to get it out earlier and just wasn't successful.
That was the first email I've ever gotten from you that was sent during daylight hours. So it was like 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
I will say, Zia was great. I mean, back and forth 2 or 3 times today, and really jumped on it. So it was great. I appreciate it. So.
Jeff, when do you expect to break ground?
We've already jumped the gun, so we're already out on site right now. So we have the site work ongoing. Foundations will be already starting in 2 weeks.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thanks. Great tenant to have.
While you're here, do you happen to know when the traffic lights are going to be working on Leonard Street?
I know that ours are up and power is installed to them, so I don't know when the full coordination. They have to run them for a certain period of time.
Yeah.
I believe it's at least 30 to 45 days.
Yeah, that's what I would.
So.
Okay.
I guess we're waiting for the coordination. It'll be nice when it's all paved out there, but it came together nice, and they finally moved those last utility poles that were in the road. So.
Makes it treacherous coming over that hill on a motorcycle.
Yeah, the lights, they're needed, so it looks good.
Okay. So if we're good, Chair would entertain a motion to approve the TIF agreement as presented and revised this evening.
So moved.
Second. Jinx.
2 motions, 2 seconds. I think we got it covered. Meg?
Yes.
Renee?
Yes.
Michael?
Aye.
And I too am a yes. So Mike, Jeff, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you, guys.
Good night.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, gentlemen. Bye-bye.
And Jack, I'll move to, adjourn.
Sure.
Seconded.
Second.
Seconded.
Seconded, okay. I don't see anybody disagreeing. Meg,
Yes.
Renee,
Yes.
Michael,
Aye.
and I too am a yes. 24 minutes, guys, that's a
There you
record.
go.
It's a wrap.
I am on my
All right, thank you, guys.
Bye.